Panelists today are Brian Young, the founder of Topo Matters, JH Bridge, Geospatial Sales and Support for Vectors Inc., and Travis Wright, who's a historian, member of the FAA Safety Drone Pro. Brian, same question.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. So I have a small business based here in Buena Vista called Topo Matters. We're over-indexed on survey on this panel because I do survey mapping for professional land surveyors. I was never really a hobbyist drone pilot. My background, I spent half of my career at Microsoft and became enamored in point clouds while I was there, and sort of think about what's my exit strategy out of the corporate world, and found myself in this space. So Topo Matters does aerial surveying for surveyors. I call our products is really trust and confidence. That's what we sell, that's what our clients buy from us. That comes along with a number of survey deliverables that are like CAD kind of files. But as we were building the business, we really wanted to go look at sort of what's the history of drone pilots and survey. And almost every surveyor I talked to had a bad experience with a drone deliverable at one point or another. So in order to break into that market, you really have to say, okay, how do I go rebuild their trust? I think almost all of my clients have a drone within a company and a Part 107 pilot, and they still hire us. So that's a testament to our work. For my personal drone, I do have a Mini 2. That was my first drone, so I've been flying for 3 years maybe. I got my Part 107 about 3 years ago, but I got my current about a year ago. And I did crash the Mini 2. I took off one time. I was trying to early stage building a flight plan, and I had it on my patio in front of my house, and I have an overhanging roof, and I, for some reason, thought the drone would go out on an angle out to begin the flight plan, and I went straight up, it hit the roof, and fell down to the ground. So that's my story.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Travis. I'm honored to be here today and honored to be on the FAA Safety Team as a drone pro, working to really educate and train and provide the necessary resources to hobbyists as well as Part 107 pilots who are participating in the national air system. In terms of my Part 107 journey, I think I'm similar to JH, 2017 or thereabouts. I fly the DJI Mavic 3 Pro Cine, as well as the Mavic 4. I was able to get one, which is pretty neat. In terms of crashing, I mentioned I'm on the FAA Safety Team, so no crashes.
Scouts honor?
Scouts honor, although I do have an Avata, and so I've crashed that one more than I can count, but you're supposed to crash those. And one of my specialties is aerial photography and cinematography, and I think that drones are the best storytelling platform for that has ever been devised.
I agree with you. I don't think the general public out there realizes how many of Netflix shows or movies or even local TV newscasts have gone to drones for some of their visuals. And my wife, being married to a drone geek, will be watching the show and she'll say, that was shot by a drone. So I guess I've influenced her just a little bit over that. So yeah, it is just amazing the quality these little high-tech flying marvels have produced. It just seems to keep getting better and better. Yeah. All right. Now that we've learned that somebody has crashed a drone once or twice, even if they were supposed to, tell me a little more specifically about what it is you do with your job. And we'll start from the far end, so you can go from there.
For sure. So I think Colorado is one of the best places to fly drones. We have just gorgeous blue skies most of the time, and gorgeous terrain, and we also have a lot of historic structures. And so I've been able and very fortunate to marry the two of those. So one of my passions is aerial photography and cinematography when it comes to historic structures and landscapes all across Colorado.
I'm gonna get back to you on that.
Okay.
A little bit later in my question.
Sounds good.
Right.
Sure, yeah, so I mentioned survey, mapping for surveyors. So our projects are fairly varied, but we're definitely over-indexed on transportation projects. We've done a lot for the city, county of Denver, everything from 4-lane intersections that are going to be, put walkways and different civil projects to a canyon project we did up near Estes Park, which was super fun. Kind of everything in between. Most of those projects are, probably only up to 1.5 miles or 2 miles of corridor at the most. So not massive projects, but they're usually for a specific engineering project. We've done some ski areas. This summer we did 2 projects at Loveland Ski Area. We've done some energy projects, private land development, and so on. So a little bit of everything. We fly a LiDAR sensor, so it's sort of slow and low. We fly like 50-meter EGL, 5 meters a second. So we do a lot of time battery babysitting while we're in the field. When I got into this business, I thought I'd be flying a drone a lot more than I do. It's still 99% office work, just my own office instead of someone else's, so that's cool. Yeah, and then we fly photogrammetry. So we, every product we deliver comes with an orthophoto, which is like a Google map on steroids. So that's sort of the drone deliverables, and then we extract from that data. We extract what we call a surface. It's a bunch of triangles that looks like a mesh that a civil engineer would go take and go build a new road or a roundabout or some other civil project.
And to piggyback off of Brian, we actually support industry or companies like Brian's where they come to us. We don't do any service related. We're not a service provider. We're more of a solutions provider for people like Brian, who would probably tell you that it's not the easiest thing to go from drones and having a background of survey with coordinate reference systems and orthos and delivering, extracting line work and points from a point cloud. A lot of our surveyors are used to points and lines, just GPS, total stations going along the line, and mapping the area of interest. But now you have a force multiplier in the drone space where these guys are having a tough time finding field work, field help, going and collecting the data. If you can collect it quickly, bring it back to the office, do most of your work from the office, it really helps a lot of the workflows. It opens up your labor force to different parts of the country. You can send data somewhere else. They can send data back, extract it, and send it back. So we really provide equipment and consultation for surveyors to do just what Brian's doing.
Let me ask the audience, put your hand up, don't be shy. How many of you have ever crashed a drone? Okay, see, you're a rarity.
I will say,
Thank you for your honesty.
I didn't come at it from a hobbyist perspective, so
Okay.
I think that changes the dynamics of it.
I think it would, I agree with that. Tell me how you have evolved and how the technology has evolved with what you do, say in the past 2, 5, 7 years since you first became familiar with drones. And start with Brian.
Well, I haven't been flying drones for that long, 4 or 5 years. I think most of what I've seen is the advancements in the software. So, both on the hardware platforms for obstacle detection, and on the DJI drones now, there's AI detection of people and vehicles and boats, and terrain following capabilities. So just a ton of things that have evolved, particularly on the DJI front. I don't want to get into like the forward-looking view of that, but we've become spoiled with the capabilities that just throw in the controller. I can go plan a mission on DJI Flight Hub. I can basically run a corridor project flying on the edge of the gravel beside the pavement on one side, cross over, come back to the next side. That drone stays right on path. I've never flown over vehicles, I've flown over people, keeping a real safe flight plan and being able to execute that flight plan. And we're really relying on that capability, and we're looking for a path to keep that in place as we move forward.
Travis?
Thanks. I've seen two things when it comes to photo-capable prosumer drones. The first one is multiple camera systems. Going from 2 was pretty revolutionary, and then 3 is pretty extraordinary. To have different focal lengths to capture different subjects is extraordinary, and then couple that with the doubling, almost tripling of battery life. That's been really neat, particularly with the Mavic 4. I can fly it, get decent shots, put it back in my bag, and do that 2 or 3, maybe even 4 times. Whereas before, the Mavic 2 or even the original Mavic, that was a one and done, and you have to carry a lot of batteries.
HP?
Yeah, I would also coincide with both those, but a big advancement in the extraction software or processing software for surveying and mapping, specifically extracting what features are really looking for, civil engineers and developers are really looking for in their surveying and mapping, mostly on the office side of things. The capabilities of the battery life and collecting more data in a quicker amount of time, I'd also say is advanced quite a bit.
I'm not in the inspection business, but I just came back from commercial UAV, and if you look at the air extraction data is incredible in terms of what they're grabbing from inspection missions as well. So it's not just survey; it's really across the board. Whether you're probably in public safety, or you're in survey, or you're in inspection, or pick your industry where drones are being used. The software side has just been incredible to see how that's changed year over year.
It is. I think back, I was in computer sales. I helped run the CompUSA computer chain back in the 90s and 2000s, and in the early 1990s, not many people had a home computer. A few people did, but they were clunky, they were cumbersome. You got the blue screen of death a lot. Remember dial-up, and I got 56 baud modem. And then come around 2000, all of a sudden these things started coming out called iPhones. And now how many of us can't live without our phones? We're all like a bunch of junior high teenage girls checking our phones every 2 seconds, and teenage boys. I don't wish to exclude anybody. And it's amazing. And then drones, they've been around for a while, but I think of the past 10 years as we've come a long way, baby. What do you think for the future? What excites you the most about possibilities and thoughts? HB, I'll go there and we'll go right back, Rob.
The most exciting, I think, would be autonomy. Autonomy of both the flight and the collection side of things, as well as the software side of things. As we're progressing further and further along, we have faster, longer collection times, as well as, like I said, you can send basically your labor force. I know of a couple of our clients that send their data off, their collected data from here off to Poland. It's extracted and delivered overnight back to them because it's 12 hours time difference, 10-hour time difference. Things of that nature is really expanding.
Minor technical difficulties, but it's better than a lost link. I'll hand that over to Travis and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think looking towards the future, there's 3 things that I see potentially on the horizon. It was mentioned a couple of moments ago about the AI detection of people in boats and cars and other things. I see AI co-pilots on the 12 to 18 months out, if not a little bit sooner, and not being reactive to things. Tree branches will always be there, but can these AI co-pilots warn us of potential impending regulatory violations with Part 107? Can it start detecting that hey, that cloud layer appears to be drawing closer to your drone, and if you don't have a particular waiver for that, you need to begin landing or moving to a different area. So I could see that being built out pretty easily in the near future. One other thought that I think will be important as we move along, you see it in a lot of news agencies already, is they're flagging AI content. There needs to be a chain of custody for AI images and videos, or those particular items that are taken from a drone, just to ensure that what we're seeing from the air is authentic. Just for fun, the other day, I fed in a photograph that I took at exactly 399 feet into ChatGPT. I said, can you make it look like this was taken from 800 feet? And it did a pretty convincing pass. So that technology is rather interesting to see how that evolves. And then finally, industry accountability. You know, I see real estate listings on Zillow and Trulia and all of these other MLS platforms, and some of the trees photographed look like blades of grass. Some of these folks are at 1,600 feet in order to photograph real estate listings to show the entire 200-acre parcel. There needs to be better checkpoints, safeguards built into those systems to ensure that policies and processes are appropriately followed.
I think I missed what you said, I got distracted, but I think looking forward, the Part 108 NPRM is kind of a leading indicator of what to expect. Autonomy, right? The whole idea that you have a flight supervisor and not a Part 107 pilot operating these missions. The detect and avoid technology that we've heard a little bit about. There's just so much coming with autonomy, and I'm personally looking forward to seeing how we in the U.S. are really accelerating our own, domestic capabilities to be able to run those sorts of missions, and it's going to change the economics of lots of businesses. It's going to expand the opportunity as well.
Yeah. Brian, you just got back from commercial UAV in Las Vegas. Thousands of people there, all sorts of companies. Give us an overview of what you saw.
Yeah, so I did the day trip to Vegas, so I didn't see everything that was on the floor. I think I was there for 6 hours, which was perfect, in and out. But there was a ton of new products, a ton of new companies that we haven't seen. A lot of sort of small format drones that were there. But I was honestly underwhelmed. I felt like there were a lot of DJI knockoff kind of capabilities and not a lot of innovation. Right? There were some cool things. There was like a helical format drone that was pretty neat. There were some tricopter drones that were pretty neat. But were they adding any value or capability, or even trying to match what we currently have? So I was sort of underwhelmed. I think we're going to get into what are some of the challenges, but I was particularly there with a lens on NDAA compliant drones and payloads, and again, it's going to where they are today is sort of a big headwind against where we are in our non-NDAA capabilities. So we can get into that in a bit.
Okay. Jay, since many of the audience members may not know what customized geospatial solutions mean, would you explain to me, a dumb guy from Turtle Creek, Pennsylvania, in plain English?
Geospatial sales and support, basically, where I'd like to counsel or consult with our surveyors and drone users in a general way to have geo-referenced, geospatial, meaning placed onto the earth. Place your photographs, your data, any data that you do collect from a drone, and how do you place it onto the earth in real life? Kind of a mixture of virtual and real life. You could take some pretty pictures, you could get some nice point cloud data, but if it's in the Czech Republic and you're looking for it in Colorado, up here, it's not going to work. So it's more consulting on how to tie things to the road.
Yeah. How do you feel that your company fits into the drone service provider space? Where's your place in that space?
Helping the service providers actually utilizing it in the correct way in the geospatial aspect and not just collecting it. So we don't do service. I don't go out and collect as a land surveyor any longer. We support the surveying community and companies like Brian that, hey, how do we take this point cloud and put it onto the ground?
Okay, great.
And help differentiate the survey space versus the mapping space.
Yes, because there is a grid to ground aspect of it as well, right? You're collecting in WGS 84 on the soil height, like all that, that's all well and good, but if you need to bring it up and do measurements to the ground, that is going to be different than just collecting images and putting them together.
And best practices on background control.
Yes, absolutely.
Travis, over to you. You're with the FAA Safety Team. Tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. So it is a lot of boots on the ground, supporting fly-ins at local airports, setting up a table, getting out FAA materials, everything from airspace cards to FAA Safety Magazine, letting folks know that FAASafety.gov is not just the location where you go to renew your Part 107 certificate every 24 calendar months, but it is a ever-evolving resource filled with a lot of great content.
Well, are you finding that as people go out, and it may be changing a little bit because of the availability of drones, people were just buying a drone from Costco or Best Buy or whatever, and going out and doing knuckleheaded things like flying too close to an airport, or there's a fire and you've got fire teams with drones up there, and or a helicopter coming in, and you've got this guy, oh, I want to get some pretty pictures with my drone. Is that part of what it is you help pre-educate people not to do? Don't be that guy.
Right, don't be the reason that FAA has to write a new rule for you.
Right.
So yes, when I live in a mountainous area of Colorado, in Fraser, similar to here, there's TFRs that occasionally go up for wildland fires, and it's extraordinarily dangerous to fly those drones during those active operations. And so educating folks, we were on a hike a couple of years ago, and there was an active wildfire. It was not producing any smoke, but the TFR was active, and saw folks hiking with a drone and flying it around, and so just going to them and letting them know to always check that airspace first and ensure that it's safe to take off, even if you don't see smoke.
You say the TFRs, I remember, what was it, almost 4 years ago, Marshall Fire in Boulder County that destroyed 1,084 homes, 2 people were killed, businesses were just leveled to the ground, and the first thing they had to put out a TFR to keep the amateurs and wannabes out there to go into that area, because as you know, that fire lasted for a prolonged period of time that was just crushing to watch. I was able to get in and take some photographs for the different newspapers around, and it just broke my heart to see it. So I empathize and sympathize with all the first responders out there, because they get to see some pretty gritty things that most of us in the normal private sector don't get to see. So I realize the importance of TFR, so good job of what you're doing. But I'm also going to turn, you're a history kind of guy, right?
I am.
And up in the county that I spend a lot of time covering, Gilpin County, is this 100-some-year-old railroad tunnel called the Moffat Tunnel. Have you ever heard of Moffat Tunnel? All right, it is a primary rail line that Amtrak takes on the California Zephyr from Chicago to LA. There's a lot of other products transported there. It's where Governor Polis is talking about creating a passenger rail service from downtown Denver out to Craig and Moffat, Rock County, and so it's a key tunnel, but it's a beautiful historic thing, and the guy who designed it died before he he was able to see the tunnel actually open and used. And you're kind of a specialist on the Rollins Tunnel. And tell me about your use of drones and exploration. You've written a book on.
Yeah, a couple of books actually. One book in particular, I just happen to have with me, but on Rollins Pass, and there's chapters on the Moffat Tunnel, but utilizing drones and drone imagery to tell those stories. You know, when it comes to historic places that really matter, setting is so important. When we think about where we're at today, it's the gorgeous mountains that frame this area, and so setting is so important, and that's something that we have in ample abundance at the Moffat Tunnel and Rollins Pass. And that's kind of how my trajectory of photographing and telling the stories of these historic places came to be. So I was being interviewed by CBS at the 5 remaining cabins at the east portal of the Moffat Tunnel. And I mentioned to the producer, oh, it's so unfortunate that you don't have a drone here today to tell this entire story. And he said, yeah, I put in for one, and we just couldn't get a photographer out here today. And I said, well, I happen to have one in the back of my car. And he paused and said, but do you have a Part 107 certificate? And I said, I do. And he goes, well, great, let's get it out and let's get some footage. And so every single year for Colorado Preservation Inc. and CBS, I work on their Saving Places documentary that airs on CBS each year. And so driving around the state, photographing and taking video of these incredible places that are very historic and in danger of being lost.
Wow. That's great. I want to see your book when we're done. And Brian, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities ahead? I don't like the word challenges, but I like opportunities, because sooner or later we're going to find that challenge and find a way to get over that rock or cross that river or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity that we have today is just going to continue to expand no matter what business you're in, right? Your inspection, survey, the opportunity in public sector in terms of what lives we can save is going to keep growing. You know, from a business standpoint, it used to be the biggest headwind used to be, everyone would say what's the biggest challenge? Oh, regulatory. For me, and I think for many businesses in the private sector, it's really about ROI at this point. It's a changing conversation. Our level of investment to sort of take our current platform to NDA compliant, US made, accomplish what we need to go do, is going to be 2 to 3 times what we invested 3 years ago. So while we have equipment that is certainly capable to keep going, and we hope we can continue to apply that, I'm going to have to buy a LiDAR sensor that's $60,000 instead of $16,000. I'm going to have $100,000 plus in the air that I've got to go insure. I've got to, hopefully get a platform that's super reliable, so when I put that $100,000 in the air, it's safe, it doesn't crash, and I don't have, an insurance claim to go take care of that. So, the safety aspect, the repair and replace, DJI care doesn't exist anymore. If I crash my current drone, I'm going to be calling Sky up and saying I need to spend $40,000 to buy a new drone. Again, as a small business, the economics are changing. That means we have to think about our go-to-market and our scale, and hopefully using some of the forward-looking things, the automation and autonomy and things like that, to say how can we go do more with the with the equipment that's available to us. So instead of 1 project a week, maybe we're doing 3 projects a week, and we're centralized and flying 20 miles, doing a survey and flying back, like kind of Part 1 a week. So we don't know what that looks like. Certainly feeling bullish about the opportunity, but also feeling very cautious about the investment that it's going to take.
Sure. JH, you deal with customers every day. So with all the stuff that's been out there about DJI this or can't get DJI that, but you're working from a different space. So what are you hearing from customers? Like, what's the key in building trust with them about domestic drone creation and operations? How are you explaining that to them or dealing with that subject?
It's a tough one to come across, because as we know, DJI is probably the standard. It works great and it's cheap. However, it is from a foreign country on the not so safe list, the non-friendly list. The biggest way I'm building trust into it is, to Brian's point, you will get some ROI. It may not look the way it did 5 years ago or 2 years ago. Like manufacturers within the states are seeing the horizon, looking down the line and realizing, hey, this is the way the government wants to push it. So manufacturers like Sci-Fly and Wingtra and Inspired Flight, these guys are all, they see that, right? And it's a time, it just takes time to kind of invest into that.
Yeah, I think given American ingenuity and technology, we will get there. We're just kind of in that rough gap area now with the Washington politics involved in everything. But I think we'll get there. With guys
I agree.
like
I agree.
what you're doing.
The problem was, because it was cheap and good, it forced manufacturing, American manufacturing, like how are you going to compete against that? So they didn't put any time or resources into it. Now that you look down the line and they see, okay, it will come out, you know, you'll get an ROI on it. They start investing more into that company, whereas before it was kind of like, well, why even bother?
Yeah, Travis, tell us about, you were involved with drones regarding a land exchange I've been hearing about up in the Rollins Pass area, Boulder County, Gilpin County. How are drones playing a role in that conversation that's going on at the higher levels?
Yeah, it's a great question and wonderful success story, not only to keep public land in public hands, but also to showcase just the power of storytelling capabilities with drones. So in 2020, 2021, a private developer had approached the Forest Service in Grant County, seeking to trade 2,200 acres of land to the Forest Service in exchange for 547 acres of public historic land that's directly at the entrance to the western portion of Rollins Pass. And initially, a lot of county commissioners, a lot of town representatives, and other folks signed off on it because it was just vague directional language. It's southeast of this property and it's northeast of this property, et cetera, et cetera. And that didn't matter to anyone because there was no skin in the game. That's just text on a piece of paper. And so by photographing this incredible property, the entrance to the pass that's been used since the early 1900s and even tens of thousands of years before with Native Americans, beginning to change the story of how to best protect this place and show folks why this area matters and why it's worth protecting. And the moment, I was using drone photography to help showcase the parcel in question, but also beginning to utilize video to raise general public awareness of the risks of letting this important public parcel be relinquished to private development. And so it was just a fantastic success story of a lot of different folks coming together around common imagery.
Okay, great. I'm going to give you folks a chance to ask questions because I could take up all afternoon and I would bore you to death. But any questions from the audience for any of these three guys? Zach.
I just, from the context of basically how do you use drones to make money, right? What advice would the three of you have for a teenager that's like, I want a career in drones, right? What fields would you say, yeah, definitely pursue these? And are there any where you'd say, hold off, think about that? Is it, anything you try to steer them away from?
So I'll answer it slightly different. I would say my advice would be pick a swim lane and stay in it. So go deep in inspection. go deep in survey, go deep in photography. Don't try to be doer of all things that a drone can do to all people, because you won't make any traction in the market. You gotta be really specialized.
My advice to that teenager would be, and it's advice that I've received in the past, and I think it's pays dividends, is it's not the equipment, it's what you do with it. And a lot of these fundamentals, shutter speed, aperture, all of these fundamentals are in handheld cameras, on your phones, on drones as well. So if all that teenager could scrape together would be enough money for some sort of Mini 3 or what have you, that's sufficient enough to put it in the air, get the requisite skill sets, and take it from there. The sky's the limit.
One of the philosophies I'll tell people when they'll say, I'm thinking about a drone or I have a drone, my response is, yeah, it's just like you could get a new car every year to keep up with the latest and greatest. But for me, the greatest drone in the world is the one I have in my hand. It may not be the most advanced or have all these lenses or cameras, but for what I need it for today, it's great.
Absolutely.
It's great.
My perspective is a little bit biased. I would say, there is no bad way to make money. To Brian's points, stick in a lane. That being said, I see the lack of young survey techs coming up. Surveying as an industry is just, we're losing surveyors to retirement and not backfilling it. And honestly, that's one of the driving forces of drones in surveying is we need to maximize what we've got already. So that being said, like I said, I'm a little bit biased, but that's because I'm in the industry and I see the market and the lack thereof being filled by, I think if you learn coordinate systems and grid to ground, you could make money pretty easily in the survey space.
Yeah, one of the things that impressed me yesterday, if you were at the drone park at the very end as everybody was packing up and leaving, this family pulled in and there was a daughter about this high and a brother, and they had a styrofoam fixed wing drone that was part of a school project. And to see them out there flying it, and of course if it hit the ground, it was styrofoam, it didn't wreck anything, and it put it up again. But just to see them doing that, and you just wonder, will that be that enough of a spark that one of them may go down the road to becoming a manned pilot or an unmanned pilot? And I think children, especially now with, I'm sure my 11-year-old grandson could outwork me on my DJI controller because he plays too many hours of video games, according to his mother, and my wife. And I mean, the capabilities of what they can do with a controller, they're comfortable with at this point. And I think the future can be bright if we can continue getting more and more people into the STEAM programs and learning. I know the Mountain West has had drone club, drone education at BV and at Salida at one point, so it's wonderful to see those kind of opportunities emerging, and hopefully it'll spread throughout this great state because the future can be very, very bright. More questions?
And I'll just add that Civil Air Patrol, for 12 to 21-year-olds, they got geospatial, and now, they got the largest UAS fleet in the country. And so that's like a huge opportunity for bringing STEM. So that's that thing, like STEM. How we're gonna innovate these sensors, and that is like we need American-based smart engineers. So a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, a computer scientist, like that aspect, that's not going away as we're starting to innovate. Like you're gonna need designers, you're gonna need those out-of-the-box thinkers. Someone says like the reason why we teach math is not to so you can do math, but it builds those pathways that have your brain think, and so I think that's that space. The to continue to not, like you said, don't forget the fundamentals, the basics. Yeah, you can do spatial analysis on a computer, but if you don't know spatial analysis theory so that if you get a wrong answer, you can kind of go, hold on, this doesn't fit right. That's the same thing with using AI right now. Like if you don't understand what your output's gonna get you, you don't know if it's just hallucinated and made some shit up, right? So that would be that space I'd say for your teenager.
Right next to you.
My question just is, what professional organizations are you guys a part of, and what do you hope to gain by being part of those organizations?
The PLSC, Professional Land Surveyors of Colorado. To get out of it, it's really the survey community. That's the main one for the survey community. And then now.
And the geospatial professional number for that.
That one I'm not a part of.
It used to be risk analysis.
Okay. Yep. There are many out there on the mapping side of things, especially Aspers. They have a huge. They put out a whole bunch of standards and regulations on what to do. And now Mountain West UAS, I'm a part of it. I'm hoping to get out of it, just growing the drone community.
So Jayesh and I met at the PLS Rocky Mountain Survey Summit, so that's my main professional organization that I'm part of. I'm not a PLS, but sort of, you don't have to be a PLS to be part of the community. SPRS is a great mapping community, and I'm on board here at Mountain West UAS, so that's where I spend most of my extra time.
Mountain West UAS, so that's exactly most important. So if you're not a member, be a member today, sign up. I'm also a member of the National Writers Union, and as I mentioned earlier, FAA Safety Team. So I'm in really good stead with folks like Taylor and Vic Moss, and just a wonderful crew here in Colorado, Wyoming.
All right, I think we have one last question.
Yeah, my question's more around 108 and kind of, obviously we'll see what comes into the final rule. But as you guys maybe have looked at it in its current form in the URM, I'm just interested in how you guys envision, to Brian and see who else has comments, but how you envision that potentially enhancing or changing how you operate or building your business moving forward?
I haven't dug too deep into it, but I think, again, as I think about the autonomy capability, imagine if we had an office here in Chaffee County and we were surveying the entire county from one spot without mobilizing the truck. That could be an opportunity. We do a lot of corridor projects today that are BV, or they're visual line of sight projects. Instead of going 1.5 miles, we can do 5 miles at a time. So not sure how the transition from what we know as BB loss and the waivers today will transition to Part 108. The limits in the Landsat map. There's been a lot of feedback on the population densities. Like we were at the drone park, flying the field to the south, so we couldn't fly that BB loss under the current, the language is currently written, right? So hopefully there's some give and take. Hopefully there's a process to, as I think we heard from Donna earlier, that there may be some ways to get permissions beyond what's in the base waiver. But I think it's going to be a game changer for survey. I think it's going to be a game changer for inspection. Think about transmission lines and things like that.
Yeah, that's gonna be good.
Yeah, so there's just, I think the opportunity that it will unlock is huge. And we're, as we're looking at our next level of investment on the hardware side, we're going to make sure that we can make sure those investments align as much to the proposed Part 108 and hopefully the final 108, so that we've made a 5-year investment and not a 2-year investment.
I see it benefiting corridor mapping mostly, oil and gas pipelines and transmission distribution lines. That being said, I see it still being specific, so it's a field technician will go out there and fly from a localized point. Surveyors by nature are really old curmudgeon-y kind of adverse to technology people. typically, and slow to adoption. So I'd still see a field guy going out to the site and launching from one spot, and maybe the company that they work for actually dictating, even though they could go a particular distance, they'd probably still limit it to 5 miles or something like that.
Travis will give you the last.
Sounds good. So the NPRM is quite long. I've not made my way through it, and I still have another month or so in order to provide comments. But answering the question from a macro level, just like with public land that we talked about earlier, the NPRM is a public process, and your voice really does matter. And if you have any feedback to provide, definitely comment on the proposed Part 108. It's really important. And then the other thing that I say about Part 108, as well as Part 107, is the FAA really appreciates when folks look at not only the obvious, but the hidden hazards. And so anything that bolsters that standpoint for folks to look around the corner to see what potential risks are 2 or 3 moves down the field, that's really important. And that's, to me, a success, even if Part 108 changes in the coming future.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, the 3 of you, Travis, Jade, Brian. Zach's probably going to get the hook out to get it off stage, so I'll just turn it back over to you.
And I'm only coming up here to say that those of you with a discerning sense of smell might suspect that it's lunchtime. So we're going to take 10 or 15 minutes for everyone to get their food and sit back down, and we will get started with our